Look at the distance that car is from me, and you can see the 40% extra power, and that thing just walking away from me. And now I'm able to brake later, and look at the distance now. Welcome back to It's Track Time. Chin Track Days, June, out at COTA. So this particular event was interesting to me because of the car that's coming out of that garage right there. That's the C8 Z06. And in the past, I've only seen these in the lower or mid-tier run groups. I've not seen them in the advanced run group. I think I've seen one over the last year. So these have been out for 2.5 years, but they've not managed to trickle up into the advanced run group. So in this particular event, there were like 3 or maybe 4 of them in this particular run group. So I was real excited to get to run with them. This is a car that I seriously considered purchasing back when it first came out. I think it first shipped in October of 2022. And what caught my eye was the engine. The engine on this thing is a 5.5 liter flat plane V8. And so this thing has the same efficiency as the Porsche 4 liter motor, which is very surprising for an American motor. So it puts out 122 horsepower per liter, which is right up there with all of the most advanced motors in the world. Because of that, it has a 40% power advantage to the Porsche motor. It has a 40% torque advantage as well. So this is a very impressive motor, and they put it in a mid-engine platform for the first time. So instead of being a typical front-engine vet having trouble putting power to the ground, they put the weight over the top of the rear axle so this thing can accelerate. And it has the handling, of course, of a mid-engine car. So I was real excited about this car, and I was waiting for the weight figures to come in. And when they finally published the weight figures, I've seen in the past where they stripped a lot of weight out of the Z06. In this particular case, they didn't. So this car came in at almost 3,800 pounds. So it's a 20% more weight than the GT4 RS. So that was a deal breaker for me. I don't want a car that's heavier than maybe 3,200 pounds on the track. And I prefer to have a car that's less than 3,000 pounds. So that's where I kind of departed and went over and picked up the GT4 RS at that point. So you have 40% more power and you have 20% more weight. So when you divide those out and you get horsepower per pound, you end up with only a 20% advantage with this configuration. And of course, with more weight, you have worse braking. The acceleration suffers. You go through the consumables faster, tires and brakes and all of that. Transitioning through corners like through the S's, you've got 523 extra pounds that you're carrying around, and so the car doesn't feel as nimble. That was a deal breaker for me. And then the other thing I found out about the car later, which I didn't know at the beginning, was that it was brake-by-wire. So this is the first time they put brake-by-wire in a high-performance car that I know of. And when we talked to some of the people out at our club track that had Cadillacs, a couple of the people had failures with this brake-by-wire system, and they actually departed the track at very high speed. Chevy kind of quietly came in and took care of the situation and got them a new car, but the fact that that system is new technology, I don't think I want to be an early adopter of brake-by-wire. I've heard it doesn't have the same pedal feel as the hydraulic system, so I just moved away from this car at that point. I still am in love with this engine. This is an amazing engine, and I love the fact that they've got a mid-engine car. If they just cut some of the damn weight out of it, I'd be standing there in line with some dollars. But it was interesting now to see, putting that much power into this platform. Can you really take advantage of it on COTA? COTA's a high horsepower track. So this thing should be crushing us with the 40% more power advantage. So I was real interested to see how this thing would perform on track and how it would compare to the GT4 RS. So this is the first chance that I've seen where I can actually evaluate this. Okay, after we got things warmed up, we're coming down the front straight here. You can see the C8 Z06 ahead of me there. It's quite a ways up the track. He was kind of hauling ass at the beginning, and I was just trying to get some heat in the tires here. But this is a very hot day, so this is like 96 degrees Fahrenheit on the track, and the humidity's at around 70%. And of course, water vapor in the air displaces oxygen, so you don't get as much as a high density of oxygen coming into the engine, so it doesn't make as much power. Plus, the air density is thinner, it's lighter, so you're not getting that cold, dense air coming into the engine with lots of oxygen. You're getting lots of water vapor and a thinner air mixture, so you don't have as much oxygen coming into the engine. You're not making as much power. So we were really suffering out there on the track. You can see when I get to the back straight here, my top speed is only like 151 miles an hour, where we should be getting close to 160. So it's definitely taken a toll on the power. Through all the corners and stuff, it's about the same. I mean, the tires give up quicker because of the heat. But this is early in the session, so we haven't got to that point yet. But you can see here on the back straight now. Normally, I would get up to 156, 157, 158, somewhere around there. And you can see now when I come down the back straight, you can even see the humidity in the air. See how hazy it looks? So there's a lot of humidity. You can see how sluggishly it's accelerating. Let's see if we get up to around 150, maybe 151, and that's where it gave up. People were saying it didn't have as much grip on the track as well because of the humidity in the air. When I looked at the plots, it looked very similar on the turns to a dry, cool day, but definitely on the straights, we were down. So we're coming up, and you can see we're kind of getting a little closer to the C8 Z06 here. We got another car in between us. I think this is a 987 Cayman that's been track prepped. So this is like one of the spec Cayman series cars. That's one of the cars I ran with for about 10 years. I just love that car. I still have it. It's a fantastic car on the track, super light, probably weighs 2,800 pounds, so like 300 or 400 pounds less than the GT4 RS. Doesn't have the power of the GT4 RS, but the handling is phenomenal in those little cars. So once we get around him, then we'll have a little more clearance to get up to the Z06. You can see how we're a little bit closer to him, but we didn't make up a ton of ground there. Now going through the S's, so this car has I think it has, let me check my stats. It has, I think, 13% more rear tire width and about 4% more front tire width. So it has more mechanical grip than the GT4 RS, even with the wider tires that I have on this car. So the vets have always had a lot of mechanical grip. That was kind of their signature item. This car doesn't have a lot of downforce, but it does have a lot of mechanical grip. And when they moved up to the ZR1, they didn't even change the tires on that one. So it seems like they're the same size tires as what's on the Z06. So you can see how we're catching up to him here in the turns. And then we get down here on this little short straight, and yeah, he's pulling away there. So there's the 670 horsepower. Now, look at the distance when we get through this braking zone here and we turn around this car. Look at the distance that car is from me. You can see I can almost see the plate. Now we get onto the back straight, and you can see the 40% extra power, and that thing just walking away from me. It doesn't walk away as fast as like a McLaren, but I guess the McLarens are in that 700 kind of range, and this is in the 600 kind of range. But this thing, because of the 500 extra pounds, it has to start braking early. And now I'm able to brake later, and look at the distance now. So when we started, we were about that distance. In the middle of the straight, he was way ahead of me. And by the time we get through the braking zone, we're about the same distance as where we started. So if they were to take that 500 pounds out of that car, and that car could brake at 150 meters out, oh, look at the tail come out on that thing. Yeah, so he lost the tail, and that was kind of the end of that one. Luckily, there's another one ahead of me, so we got another one to chase down here. But yeah, back to the straight, you have an advantage with power, and then when you get to the braking zone, you got to brake earlier, and you end up giving that advantage back to a car that's lighter weight. So if they were to cut 500 pounds out of that car, that would be a phenomenal car. But they, for whatever reason, they build it with lower, I mean, you have to keep the cost down, so they build it with lower technology materials, and the thing is very heavy. The other problem with the Chevy engines in the past has been cooling these things. So I know with the forced induction ones that were in like the supercharged ones that were in the Z06 in the past, they could only do maybe 4 laps out at COTA, and then they go into limp mode because they were overheating. And so that was a real problem. With this normally aspirated engine, I think they're going to be able to cool this one better. I didn't see any of these cars giving up on the track. They seemed like they ran the whole session in this heat, and they didn't seem to have any problems with heat. Now the ZR1, because of the extra forced induction, that one's going to have some more heat soak, and I know they added more cooling to that one, so that one's going to be even more heavy than the Z06. But This one looks interesting because I think they might have licked the cooling problem on this one. And you can see now we're catching up to it. This particular car is driven by a guy I know he typically drives the GT4 RS Club Sport. And in this particular case, he couldn't get the car from Houston over to COTA. And so he ended up bringing the Z06. Now, okay, look how close we are to this car here. So see how close we are going into the back straight. And now here's the power. And you can see this thing leaving us. So you can see I was almost on his tail as we came into turn 11. And now look at him leave. And now he's going to apply the brakes at probably 200 meters out. And there he is applying the brakes. And now I'm going to apply the brakes at 150. And we're right back to where we started. So adding a bunch of power with more weight doesn't really help you. You've got to add more power with the same weight to take advantage of this. And you can see how he's wiggling around a little bit. It seems like it's not very stable on the back end. The other one, you can see it had a tail problem here on 15. And this one, you can see the tail is kind of moving around. But yeah, so anyway, that was the first time I've actually seen these on the track and be able to run with them. And that was very interesting. So it'll be interesting when the air is cooler, how much power they make, and if they can really take advantage of that added power. Time will tell. The ZR1 is coming out now, and that one's going to be over 1,000 horsepower. I think it weighs like 300 pounds heavier than the Z06 because of the added cooling. So time will tell if that one's going to do well out at COTA. I know they were out there the weekend before this event, I think it was, and they were running in the heat, and none of the reviewers said anything about the cars going into limp mode. So it seems like they might have licked the cooling problem, and they might have gotten around that. Hopefully that's true, and hopefully the ZR1 will be able to run at COTA at full speed and not have the timing pulled. So that's another interesting one to watch for. Still very impressed with this car, and I hope to see more of these out here and over time see their lap times, and hopefully they'll push them down into the 218 kind of range like we're seeing with the GT4 RS. Before I let you guys go, let me show you one more thing. So in the garages next to us at this event, they had some people that were moving around cargo containers and stuff. And whenever that's going on, you always kind of pay attention because there's always something very interesting going on with either a hypercar or something that's going to be tested in the next week. So it became apparent these guys were actually McLaren guys, and they were unloading for some kind of a test that they were doing the next week. And we watched, and eventually they opened up one of the air containers, and there was an F1 car in it. And we asked the guys about which one it was, and they said it was the one from last year. It wasn't the one from this year. And they were doing some testing, and that was about all we got out of them. When they got the car unloaded, they put it behind a wall, and we couldn't see it anymore. So and they didn't want us walking behind the wall after that. But they were real lenient about us filming it, so we were able to film the car in its container and all the diffusers and all that kind of stuff, which you rarely get to see. But out at COTA, you really have to keep your eyes peeled because you never know what you might see. So it turns out the next week we were starting looking at the news, and it turns out that Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, and Brad Pitt were all out there running this car, doing some testing. And they let Brad apparently drive the car. He's in the F1 movie is getting released this week, and apparently as part of that, they were going to let him drive a real F1 car, and not just a mocked-up F2 car or whatever they had for the movie. So they actually let him drive this car at COTA. So it'll be interesting to see how well he did, because I know that's a very difficult car to drive. And a lot of times they stall them and have all kinds of problems. So you never know what you might see out there. So you have to keep your eyes peeled, and we'll catch you out at the track next time.